I'm Kristen Mothersbaugh, the creator and the high priestess of the Elven Temple. Thanks for joining me to hear my Elven Story, also known as my Elven Awakening spiritual journey. So, I was born and grew up in the Midwest of North America on a small farm in Missouri. And I loved animals and nature. As a kid, I was insecure and very empathic, but I didn't realize that for many years. I had this deep desire to prove myself and face my fears, and I kept trying to be better and better every day, despite my insecurities. And I didn't have any psychic experiences that I remember as a child. I just always remembered really feeling a lot of other people's emotions, and I honestly thought everyone felt that way. So I didn't realize until I was older that, oh, I'm really empathic. I'm like a sponge, basically. And so I didn't have a super strong sense of self as a kid. It's very malleable and flexible in terms of like how I would present myself, or opinions I would state. I was still trying to figure myself out for many, many years. And I fell in love with acting and knew I wanted to do that because I loved and felt so immersed into anything otherworldly. Like, I was into anything paranormal. I loved fantasy and sci-fi, books, films, shows, video games, soundtracks, all of that. That stuff really moved me. And I was interested in magic and witchcraft, actually, but I felt I couldn't delve into that because as a child I was raised Christian and I was pretty devout, and I really prayed all the time. I had a deep connection as a kid that I started to cultivate with God, source, creator, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And my spiritual awakening started when I was a teenager. My father passed away. It like really just made me shake off all of my Christian beliefs because I wasn't finding the answers or solace from Christianity. And I began to explore and go on a spiritual quest for deep wisdom and truth. And over the many years after that, I had a 13-year dark night of the soul, constant challenges that I'm just coming out of now in 2022, the year that the Elven Temple is birthed. So during that time, I went to college and I began to study and explore spiritual modalities and different ways of practicing spirituality and connecting. So some examples are that I started meditating every day. I got yoga teaching certified. I was gifted my first tarot deck and got my first readings done, and really found that I really believed this, and I would give readings for fun, and then it became a thing that became professional over the years for me to give tarot readings to people like at my job or at parties. I got Reiki healing certified as a master. I studied so many different things, Akashic records, shamanic soul retrieval, and there's like more than I can even state here. So I've really cultivated over many years all of these different skill sets, which I'm always still learning. I read runes. I'm practicing Tai Chi and Qigong, and trying to always learn more. But throughout those years is when I really opened up psychically, especially when I became a healer. That's when I noticed I would start to receive psychic messages, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, especially, sometimes claircognizance. But that's when it all started to come in my readings and in my healings. And I even like started doing mediumship, and that was something I was very insecure about, but it would come through. So I opened up a ton, and it was through a process of healing and peeling back layers of resistance, of covering up, I think, these natural abilities that I have, and I believe every human has, honestly. But I had a natural affinity for them, and was happy to open them back up by healing and clearing and studying and learning and growing in that way. So, back to my childhood. The stuff that really moved me were the Legend of Zelda video games. And I remember seeing The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring in theaters and being completely blown away. I read the Harry Potter books and also watched the Harry Potter films in theaters. I was the same age as the characters when the movies would come out. And so I grew up with the Harry Potter Hogwarts gang, and not just that, there was just so much that I loved, but those were three main things that really impacted me very, very deeply. Moving to California in my early 20s after college, I worked really hard and didn't get the big break of my acting success right away that I wanted. And then over the years, I realized, oh, I meant to create these. So I started my own production company, Adventuring Entertainment. Also, throughout the years, I was doing all that spiritual work professionally, and I started my own business, Cherry Blossom Spirituality, after working for many other businesses in person. And the Elven Temple, the idea for that came about from me studying and learning and being interested in more and more elven stuff, like reading, just naturally just looking into this stuff more and more, like the Silver Elves or Kimberell in High Elven Wisdom and Love. And just looking into that, I started to receive this understanding in my meditations of what my higher self looked like. And she began to show herself to me more and more. And she is elven. She's a very strong, tall, like warrior elven queen with this ethereal elegance. And I was like, wow, that's my authentic truth of my soul. Wow. And so I knew there was something there. One of my main guides, my spirit guides, is also elven. And it's a pretty cool story how that came about. So quite a few years ago, I went to a spiritual shop that I later ended up working at for a bit. But I went to a class on Meet Your Spirit Guides. And it's because I had one particular guide that I wanted to meet. Now, this guide showed up when I would say the pathway prayer process for the Akashic Records. So I would go into the Akashic Records, and your masters, teachers, and loved ones are there. It's a very high vibrational realm where all of the information is kept for the whole universe and universes at large. And I would ask to see like my scrolls and understand what's going on with my timelines in my life. And there was always one particular being that would be there, but I could never see their face. It was always this bright white light. They're very caring but stern. They had a masculine energy. And I felt like, okay, this isn't my father who passed away. This isn't another guide I've worked with or seen, because I'd already met some of my guides in like healing sessions and whatnot. They would show up. I knew this was a different one, but I had this deep connection because they were there every time I would go into the Akashic Records. And so I went to this class, this Meet Your Spirit Guide class, and I was taken through a meditation where I got this huge download of me and this guide. And he finally showed me his face, and he is elven looking, pointed ears, long white blondish hair, very tall stature with this sort of like velvet robe is how he showed himself to me. Such love, such a kind soul, and so strong and helpful. And I was downloaded to show that we have a relationship that is bonded through many different lifetimes, and we're kindred spirits. And we've been on Earth many times, and I saw Egypt, Atlantis, Lemuria, and I saw other lifetimes on Earth, and I saw other ones with him as different creatures on different worlds. So I was like, whoa, 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 like big download here. And it took me a bit to like come out of it, because it was just this huge moment. His name is Lucius. I call him Lush for short, spelled L-U-C. And since that experience, he's been working with me more and more. And now I understand that me and him are both of what we would call like Elven Energy. Specifically for the beginning of the Elven Temple, I got messages from readers that told me I am being initiated into being a priestess, and this was early 2022. And I was a little confused, like, okay, I don't know how this is happening, but all right. And then they said, not just a priestess, a high priestess. Like a master bringing new frequencies as a way shower, a leader. And I had been working on my empowerment and my leadership. And I was already interested in this like elven energy, but I wasn't going to like start anything with it. But then these readers said, well, this option is there for you if you want. And so I looked into it, talked with my higher self, with Lush, and with the readers again. And the energy, the specific frequency that I'm a high priestess of, is a combination between cosmic extraterrestrials and fairies, elementals. And that's the elven energy that I bring. And because I felt such immense joy in my soul at this realization, I decided to start the Elven Temple. And this is to be like a sacred space, like an online haven, a sanctuary for elven spirituality. And for learning, but also for healing and services and community. So it felt a little bold and daring because I had expressed some of my elven interests in like my social media of Cherry Blossom Spirituality, but I felt like, ooh, the energy wasn't like accepted really, so it made sense to create its own container of the Elven Temple for that energy of mine to be expressed through. And it makes sense because I do have a natural affinity for the Fae. I've been working with them for many, many years. I see them on hikes that I take. It's been happening for a very long time. And I was always known as like the fairy at my shops that I would work at as a reader, they'd always be like, oh, Kristen, she's like a little fairy, like, ah. But I knew that I was more elven than like a little sprite. But I also, throughout the last few years, especially since 2018, I've been having some visceral, and tangible, and physical, also very, very strong, potent, energetic experiences with extraterrestrials. And a lot of my childhood, I was fascinated but very scared of aliens. And I healed that fear and started to actually have energy come through, like feeling energy work being done on me, and being able to communicate more with these loving ETs of mine. And so there is a bridging happening, and that's the frequency I'm bringing through. So it does feel like this is very vulnerable, very nerdy stuff. Like, oh my gosh, a little nerve-wracking to express, to be honest, because a lot of people make fun of people like this. But because it is so near and dear to my heart and it is so authentically me, it's vulnerable to put this out there, but it's also really rewarding. And I've come to realize that my elven awakening and understanding that, I am an otherkin. I'm meant to be here as a human in this life, in this experience, but my soul, my spirit, it's elven. Like, to really realize that and really know that has affected every area of my life for the better. On the daily, I feel more whole. As an actor, I feel like I know my niche more of my branding, my types. As a filmmaker and showmaker, I know the energy that I want to bring through and the kinds of stories I want to tell. So it's definitely affected me in so many ways. And even with Cherry Blossom Spirituality, I'm able to be a clearer channel because I understand myself so much more for the work I do with that. And then I also have a podcast called Awakening Film and TV Podcast. And it's like, now I'm able to come at a more expressive way of being whenever I talk on this podcast, because I know who I am. And at the time I'm filming this video, I'm just getting this rolling now in the summer of 2022, the temple. And I've learned how to protect my energy, and anyone that is judgy or unsupportive of any of my work that I do or any of it, any area of my life, I don't let them in anymore. I have like this healthy boundary of self-love where those that are open-minded and that are supportive, even if they don't agree with me, are welcome. So that's kind of how I've learned to not be this like people pleaser doormat that lets people walk all over me, which I had to recover from because that was very detrimental for me. Because I went through some really dark times in my dark night of the soul, and it was really, really hard for me. Having my Elven awakening has brought me a lot of understanding of like why my soul is here at this time, why I incarnated, why I'm attracted to doing video for literally all of my careers. Like I want to use the format of video. It's like, this was the time I wanted to come in. Plus, this is a great time of huge awakening and ascension from 3D to 5D, really anchoring in those higher frequencies on this planet. And one of those higher frequencies is this specific Elven frequency that I'm bringing through. I was also a little bit insecure because of not being an expert on Tolkien mythology, on Lord of the Rings Middle Earth history, on Elven language, on all of these other things people seem to know a lot about. And so I talked with my higher self and Lucia about it, and they were like, hey, you're bringing something special. Trust in that. Learn as you go. Be confident. And know that you are always providing something unique. And I also like that because, and it helped me to feel a lot more relieved. I was like, oh gosh, a high priestess, like, you know, I don't know all of this stuff that everyone else does, but they were like, no, don't worry, it's natural for you. It's natural. It made me feel a lot better to not feel like there's any kind of dogma with being elven, you know? Like, you don't have to be specifically from the Lord of the Rings Tolkien Middle Earth universe. There's elven energy outside of that. And I love connecting with other people that feel this way as well. About my elven self, if I was to choose, though I love like all magical creatures and all regions and elements, what really lights up my soul is being a forest elf, a wood elf. That's what I really resonate with. So I'm happy to be here at this time to provide a specific frequency through this work. It's really lovely to be able to even express my own very vulnerable nerdiness inside of me and connect with other like-minded individuals. And I hope that this work that I do really does uplift and heal and enlighten and awaken others. So thank you for listening to my story. And if you want to tell me anything about yours, feel free to comment below. I'm wishing you many elven blessings. Thank you. Bye-bye.